Hello, I'm George Caylor, and now you're on the right side. Today's tea time, let's first hear a word from our sponsor.
Today's Defense of the Constitution brought to you by Witten Funeral Homes, a tradition in Central Virginia since 1937, offering funeral, cremation, and advanced planning services, not offered by smaller funeral homes. Go to wittenfuneralhome.com.
Today, instead of talking about the impeachment and Nancy Pelosi having a hissy fit and showing what an immature person she was by tearing up the speech and all that, I think I'm going to do something different. I've had requests from a number of friends of mine and readers and people I never knew, including Mike Huckabee, I like him. Why don't you read a story from your book, Surviving Georgie? Well, the last week in April, I'll be in New York City, and I've been invited up there. I'm going to be talking to at least a dozen TV producers about doing a weekly segment on TV based on the character Georgie. The stories take place 1949 to 1956 on a Pennsylvania Dutch farm. All the stories are true. All the people are real. A lot of them that are still living are still mad at me. And it's the only book I think that's ever been written in America that was spoken kindly about by the folks at Focus on the Family and Saturday Night Live. So today's story is going to be a little bit different, though. Instead of talking about when Georgie tied all the chickens to his wagon to make them pull him, which didn't work out very well, or parachuting the cat, and that didn't work out very well either, I'm going to tell a story today about Belle Hartley, the strongest woman in the county. The Caylor family had a neighbor lady, Belle Hartley, known for her toughness. She was stronger than any other woman and most of the men. She wasn't pretty, and she couldn't care less. Farmers are the ultimate pragmatists, and pretty wasn't a useful attribute. Strength was. Belle liked to go out to the fields with the men that she had hired, and she wanted to get a good day's work out of them. She paid them $1 a day, and she wanted to make sure that they earned it. The men walked or rode a wagon, and Belle rode on the lead horse, bareback. And those Belgians were so huge, and she was way up there on a horse. The thing is, she wasn't just sitting on the horse. She was sitting on something called tack. No, tack, that's the reins, the horse collar, and the other items that are attached to the horse to pull the plow or the wagon or whatever was being pulled. Well, before I was born, Daddy was a little boy at the time, and he waited for Grandpa, Belle, and her workmen to come in from the fields. When they arrived, Belle stopped her team of Belgians and slid down to the ground. The problem was, not all of her slipped down. Her long dress got caught up in some of the tack, and as Belle came down, her dress came up. Up to that moment, nobody would have guessed that Belle wore nothing but shoes and a dress. By the time her shoes touched the ground, her entire body was uncovered. Now, when my wife Joanne read this, she said, George, my grandma told me about that. Women wore these long dresses and they didn't feel a need for any underwear. Well, Belle reached the ground. Her body was totally naked except for the dress, which was over her head. And she turned her body to the horse to try to hide some of her and try to preserve her dignity a little bit. And Grandpa tried to cover Daddy's eyes. But he was seeing his very first bare naked lady, albeit a very manly one. And one of the workmen thought it would be helpful, so he ran over to Belle, took off his big straw hat, and tried to cover her very ample butt. And another workman yelled out, "More hat!" Well, everybody just falling on the ground laughing. And Daddy can't remember if that workman who started that got a beating or not, but they all said the laughter would have been worth it. And there's a picture of Belle turning her body to the horse, and a workman tried to cover her. And that didn't work out very well either. Well, the next story really didn't work out for Belle. One day, Belle was working by herself, cutting the wheat. The Belgians pulled a mower that had sickle bar blades powered by the wheels. That is, when the wheels were turning, the blades went back and forth. When the wheels stopped, the blades stopped because they were powered by the turning of the wheels. And so it was a very dangerous machine. I'm pretty sure that Cyrus McCormick invented it, and it saved a lot of time and trouble. But as I said, it was dangerous because you sat right over the sickle bar. And so the sickles were going back and forth right below your feet. And it was dangerous, but I think everything was dangerous back then. There was no EPA, no safety measures, no shields on anything. And there were 1,000 ways to die a terrible death back then. But that's just the way it was. Belle was mowing the fields one day by herself. And she slipped off the mower seat. Before she could right herself, the horses jumped forward, and the sickle bars went back and forth. And Belle looked down, and her foot was lying on the ground, separated from its owner. Well, for most people, that would be a time for panic, but not Belle. I told you she was a tough woman. She quickly took her bandana off her head, made a tourniquet to stop the bleeding on her leg that didn't have a foot on it anymore. And she picked up her foot and she rode the mower back to the house. She put her foot in a bucket and took it into Adrian Hospital in Punxsutawney, about 12 miles distance. Well, that was before microsurgery, and they couldn't attach the foot. Couldn't do it back then. But we don't let anything go to waste where I come from. Belle put the foot into a jar of formaldehyde, and she put the jar upon her mantel over the fireplace. And everyone that came to see her saw that foot up there. It was quite a conversation piece, talking to the owner of the foot. The foot is up there on the mantelpiece. And I remember talking to Belle, and I'd be trying to look at Belle, but my eyes were always going up to the mantel. I couldn't say something like, Belle, would you move your foot? It wasn't like, when you're in a meeting or something and someone's foot on top of yours and you say, move your foot. Well, then move your foot. I was afraid, Belle, would you move your foot? She might actually take the foot down off the mantel and put it on the coffee table right in front of me. Anyway, that is the story of Belle Hartley. Most of the stories here in Surviving Georgie, I don't know if that one will make the TV series, if there's one or not. That'd be a hard one to film. Most of the stories are about Daddy and me, and how I almost killed him 1,000 times in this book, well, maybe 10 times, and he survived each time, and that's what the Surviving Georgie is about. And it's not just about him surviving. It's about how a little boy who was ADD, hyperactive, the whole world was his Disney World. It was a world to experiment with. People were to be experimented with to see what worked and what didn't. And if they do the TV series, I want it to be filmed around Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, where the stories took place. I don't know if they'll do that or not. There's a saying, beggars can't be choosers. But I know some great people up there that would be happy to play the parts of the people in the community. A lot of them still remember the stories about Georgie and the things that he and his family had to go through growing up in the 50s. It was a time of innocence. We started every day in school with a Bible study. I'm talking public school. And with Bible study and prayer. And even though we boys checked our trap lines on the way to school, and we carried our guns to school, put them in the cloakroom. Thousands of kids across Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky, New York, thousands of kids carried their guns to school. And decades went by without an incident. Can you imagine a time like that? That's the way it was. At any rate, I hope you'll go to Amazon or your local bookstore and look up Surviving Georgie. I guarantee It's a great read, and you'll enjoy yourselves. I hope you have a really great week, and I hope you'll go to ontherightside.com to look at these and to my YouTube channel and enjoy these videos. Goodbye for now.